was out walking today, and I said, you know what? I deal with all the gang of seven, and a lot of them are these general managers that are older guys. So, when you deal with older guys, they've seen more players. And I was just curious does Micah Parsons remind them of anybody that they've seen before? We always talk about in draft meetings and stuff. When Jeff and I will sit down and evaluate, and like Jeff will say, he reminds me of this. Remember that receiver that we did a couple of years ago? Or remember that tight end? Or remember, and you always want to you always trying to compare a guy that you're currently watching to maybe a guy that played in the league, 10, 12 years ago, and you could kind of get a little bit better understanding of where his career path might go. So I reached out to the gang of seven. I said, listen, tell me who Micah Parsons is to you. So I'll just kind of run down these with you a little bit here.
Right on.
Lawrence Taylor. Is one of them going to say Lawrence Taylor?
One of them is going to say Lawrence Taylor.
Yep.
He's absolutely going to say that. And okay, and you know what, Jeff? I'll start with that one for you, okay? Because what this guy said was, he said, listen, he says he doesn't remind me. This is how he started it. He says he doesn't remind me of anybody I've seen. But he said, I said this in our draft meetings, and now it's really kind of caught on. He does remind me of Lawrence Taylor from the impact he could provide a defense. This older scout was trying to say, hey, listen, this guy potentially could be, maybe this is another team thinking about maybe they can use him as a rusher, that kind of thing. But he said the impact that he could have, and he said LT did it on two levels of the defense. He says this kid can do it on all three. So they were thinking about him. So evidently these teams were watching different Penn State tape than maybe you and I were watching. Because I'm getting the vibe that people were kind of thinking that maybe he could be a rusher. So
Jerry talked about it this morning and said on the inside.
Yeah.
They're kind of playing with words a little bit when they're like, oh, no, we knew he could rush.
Yeah.
It was a projection on the outside.
Sure.
On the inside, they were.
Yeah.
If you're
yeah.
If you're
I reached out to a couple of coaches. I want to maybe get to that, have a little time for that. But the guy said, hey, he reminds me a little bit of Lawrence Taylor from the impact he can have, provide the defense, the two levels, the way that LT did it. And he says, but this kid can do it on all three. The rusher.
So better than Lawrence Taylor. Not bad.
Yeah, better. So that goes to your Lawrence Taylor thought about. Okay. Another general manager told me, he goes, parts of him remind me of Brian Urlacher with the Bears. Like that big
intimidating tackler.
Yeah, intimidating finisher and all that. The guy Urlacher was a guy. If Urlacher in college, I know why this guy said this, because Urlacher, we watched him at New Mexico. He was a punt returner. He was a strong safety. Huh. So he was a punt returner. Like they threw him the ball. He played some offense. He's playing as a linebacker. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. So the versatility that you use him as, this is what this guy, he said, parts of him remind me of Urlacher. He said, but the other parts remind me of Von Miller, the rusher. The way that
the perfect middle linebacker and the perfect pass rusher.
That's what
not bad.
That's what the combo. That was
not
the combo.
Bad.
As Hagee would say, that's your combo platter on that.
Okay.
He said he goes, he says it's rare for a guy to be a great fourth or fifth rusher. That's what he's talking about. I mean, he says, this guy is a great fourth rusher. He says, Urlacher, you could use him as the fifth rusher. He's saying that Parsons as that fourth guy is better. I mean, you could play him at that defensive end and let him rush like Jeff, like you want him to do. And he said, but Urlacher was a guy, when you brought him on the blitz, he was just going to overpower people and stuff like that. So he says, okay, another guy said this, he goes, I don't have a comparison. He says, I don't. But he goes, it seems like he is what Minnesota wanted with Anthony Barr.
Okay.
That type of can play linebacker off the ball, can cover, can rush the passer. Yeah. He says, I haven't seen anybody like him. I don't know. But he goes, in my mind, I believe Minnesota wanted Anthony Barr to be Micah Parsons. I mean, we think Anthony Barr was a pretty good player coming out of UCLA and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I get what they're saying, because Anthony Barr was one of those dudes that in college did kind of rush the passer off the edge, play outside linebacker, drop in coverage, kind of do everything. Parsons, we didn't see do it, but it just turns out that he's awesome at all of it.
Yeah. Had another general manager tell me this. He goes, he's LeVar Arrington to me. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, a combination of size, power, quickness, and finish. And I was talking to somebody about the LeVar Arrington comparison over with the Cowboys. I was talking with a particular coach, and this coach told me, he says it helped a lot that LeVar was his mentor during his year off of football. Huh. So this coach was telling me, it's like, listen, this guy was kind of his game. He was talking about his game or developing his game, but he used LeVar Arrington as a mentor to say, hey, how do I get ready for the league? What do I need to do? That kind of thing. And he says it really helped him in part of it. Once again, he was saying, listen, the college tape exposure, man, I just didn't see what these guys are talking about, but they surely did. Here's another one that he says,
well, if anybody saw what it really was, he would have been a top 3 pick.
Yeah. If you'd have known, but yeah, I totally agree. Another guy said he's Gerard Mayo as an inside linebacker from the Patriots back in the day, and Von Miller as a rusher is what he was saying.
So just a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro Bowl linebacker, All-Pro pass rusher.
These guys were throwing the combinations. Another one of my general manager guys said this. He says, listen, he goes, I know you're looking for a name. He goes, but it's complicated. He says, when scouted at Penn State, I can compare him to a dozen guys. When you look at him with the Cowboys, his game has totally advanced beyond. Yeah. He says, my take is Penn State didn't know how to use it, and the Cowboys saw things that others did not see in the crystal ball. Yeah. He says, giant props to the Cowboys and their evaluators and their coaches for pulling this off.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have gotten the chance to do all this with Rod Marinelli. Would they have drafted him? They probably would they have rushed him? I don't know, with his arm length.
Yeah.
They had such rigid rules. He redefines what you need to be a top level pass rusher, and I don't think there's a comp. That's the text I like the best from the Gang of Seven so far. Just like kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah.
Have we ever seen anybody like this? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it reminds me so much too of what we've seen. And you mentioned, how about the best safety in the league? With the Rams. I mean, and here the Cowboys were talking about him playing as the best corner in the league with the Rams, playing as a safety. You just don't know what plans and visions that these coaches and scouts have for these players.
But Dan's had a knack his whole career, hasn't he?
I think Dan's had a knack. I think the player, and I said this yesterday, I bet you the player went up to him, and again, talking to the coaches, some of the coaches over there, they were talking about the exposure that they got, and trusting that. That, hey, maybe this guy's got some of that to him. Maybe he's got that ability when he blitzes and things like that he's got that ability where you could put him on the edge. He can win one-on-one. Hey, he was a former defensive end. Those are the kinds of things I think that, that it really, that maybe those are the things that trigger. But I said this too. Maybe he walked up past Dan Quinn while Dan was doing drills on the field one day and said, you ought to see me rush the passer. In high school, I was a great pass rusher. Yeah. And Dan's like, yeah, I bet you were, as he's like
line him up.
Yeah. And then the next like Dan's sitting in a meeting and it's like, it's funny. Micah came by me talking about defensive end stuff. Has anybody ever seen him? And then maybe Will said, yeah, on tape you could kind of, So to me, there's a lot of people that were really wrong about this player. Maybe you're right about him as a first round player, but you didn't see that extra thing that maybe, and the Gang of Seven, I think, are trying their best to kind of put a handle on it. But some of those guys, for as long as they've been around the league, they don't have a really, really, really good comparison. I like the Urlacher stuff because I remember him in college playing a lot of different positions. I know one of the Gang of Seven guys said he's Urlacher because of the versatility.
Yeah,
the versatility, and that's what reminds you of him.
I mean, whether it's Arrington or Urlacher, I'm thinking of a very physical linebacker, but guys that didn't rush the passer that great. So then you add maybe the best pure pass rusher in the game.
Right.
It's really incredible. Is he good enough that he can keep this defense good by himself? I don't know, but as long as you're doing a good enough job of drafting and signing players, like, this guy's going to give you a good defense for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to, like, the corners I think are playing well. I mean, you got Diggs. I'd love to have somebody on the opposite side, more of Diggs. Even though Brown is playing well, I'm kind of like, I would be really interested if they had another linebacker. Again, Van Der Esch played better in this game. That looks like the front. Now, the front might be in flux. What's going to happen with Tank? What's going to happen with Randy?
Yeah.
That's the thing that, you're going to have to probably work around that.